Asia dropped a shoe, Mercury dropped a new big three, and it all came down to a single point. And we are live from Studio K. Welcome back to the PHNX Mercury podcast. I am your host, Erika Day. I'm joined by esteemed PG1, on and off the court, in and out of the field, in and out of the studio, Stephen Garner. Stephen, how you doing today?
Doing great. We finally got some basketball to talk about, and it was very fun to observe and see a lot of the things that were going on. Obviously, Mercury lost, but very fun game. Even with the reserves playing for both teams the majority of the second half. So I'm fulfilled and really looking forward to Sunday now. How about you?
Yeah, I would agree. You know, I've been watching a lot of Euroball, so I've been super excited to have some domesticated basketball back to watch.
Mm-hmm.
The whole preseason has just, across the league, has been more exciting, I would argue, than last season. There's been far fewer blowouts. I mean, way more 1 to 2 possession games, and it's just been a lot of fun. And I think that it kind of awoke the fans that, you know, hey, this team is the real deal. You know, when you compete against the Aces the way they did, even in the preseason, I know it doesn't hold that much weight, but at the end of the day, like, a 1-point game is a 1-point game. So I'm feeling jazzed about where the Mercury are at, and I'm sure that everybody else is feeling jazzed. Thanks for tapping in the comments. Andy, David, William. We got a new producer behind the Mac today, Ayrton. Did I do it? Yes. Okay. And I just want to make sure I said his name right. Freckled Ginger on Twitter. Make sure you give him a follow. I just, that is like probably the best Twitter handle I've ever heard. So I had to make sure I gave that a plug right away.
We're going to correct you real quick. It's Freckled Mamba. You got the name right. The Twitter handle's a little tough.
Listen, I did my best. Freckled Mamba, though, even better. You know, like it just itches a scratch I didn't even know existed in the first place. But anyways, welcome to the show. If you haven't watched with us, thank you for hopping in. Tap in with PHNX Sports. They've got shows for everything. The Suns, Cardinals, D-backs, the Wildcats. Maybe I'll be making a sneak appearance later today. Never know. ASU, you know, you can just tap in with everything, become a diehard. And, you know, we're on the road to 50K now. We hit 40K last week. So 50K, we are on the road to. If you're not subscribed already, what the heck are you doing? Hit that subscribe button right now. But with all that being said, we've had some news. I want to start with something where we've kind of like talked about Matt Ishbia so many times on this podcast. And I think the big reason, I'm sure a lot of other like, you know, WNBA people don't talk about their owners quite as much as we do. But Matt Ishbia, again, just showing why he is really the best owner in the WNBA. You know, he did that $2 value menu for the Suns, and now he's doing the same thing for the Mercury. $2 hot dogs, sodas, water, bag of chips, bag of popcorn. It really doesn't matter. Whatever you want, $2. And like this just changes the game if you're a family, or even not a family, if you're just a person trying to go to games. I mean, these tickets are getting a lot more expensive really quickly. And so the fact that you can still go to a game, have a full freaking meal for like $6 a person, like that's incredible. And so, you know, I said it on Twitter this morning, like, you know, Aces fans, Liberty fans, everybody wants to argue about who the best owner is in the league, but what Ishbia has been able to do in the Valley as far as investing in these young women is literally incredible. You know, you got the facility, all-star here last weekend, free agency movement with Satou, Alyssa Thomas, and obviously Kahleah Copper, but like what Ishbia has been able to do in the Valley is really next to none.
Yeah, it's the embracing and engaging of the community to a point where it's not him operating as their two separate entities. It's we instead of they and them. And I think that part is extremely important because it aligns with all of the actions and decisions he's made. Speeding up the obvious building and opening of the practice facility by a literal year. Telling them that's not good enough and that it needs to be done by X date so that they can obviously integrate it with All-Star Weekend, and obviously even more so the Olympics. And that's the way they're breaking in the Diana Taurasi court and everything that they have to show off with the state-of-the-art facilities. But it's the engagement of the community, opening up and having so many opportunities for young women via the YMCA leagues and things that they're getting involved with Mountain West Credit Union, who is now the name of obviously the practice facilities now. Those little things matter, and it's a matter of them adding up time after time after time. You can talk about how he decides to spend his money on roster construction and whatnot. That stuff is subjective, but the things that he's doing with the community are absolute A+, 10 out of 10s. However you want to rank them, it's the highest of the high.
Well, and I think there gets to be like this murky water where everyone's talking about roster construction. And at the end of the day, what he's been able to do as far as investing in the community, it speaks for itself. And so when you come to the Mercury game, and a lot of you in the comments have been to Mercury games and you know exactly what I'm talking about, but it really is like a family in there. And so, you know, you step in and everybody takes care of everybody and make sure that everyone is good and is having a good time. And I just think, you know, Stephen got to experience the game day atmosphere in what was known as Footprint Center, now PHNX Arena, last year. But like this year, he's going to see it even more up close and personal every single game and see, you know, the way they've been able to engage this community and get them involved with the Mercury is really, really, really fun. So I'm really excited that he's, you know, spread this value menu back over to the Mercury. I think, you know, it speaks so highly of him that, you know, he's willing to do just, that's such a small thing to some people, but to us, I mean, it really does change the entire game day experience.
Yeah, I mean, if you're coming into ownership and you're owning multiple franchises, one should not be taking precedent over the other. One should not be getting preferential treatment over another. And he's been very much intentional about whenever he's speaking to general things about the Suns, he always includes things on the Mercury as well. And that's, again, aligned with his actions. Brings the value menu to the Sun side of things, obviously extremely relevant considering NBA ticket prices. Does the exact same thing on the Mercury side of things, and that should come as no surprise. It's not an insignificant thing. It should just be what's done, but we've seen that not be what's actually done. So to see it being done repeatedly and intentionally is refreshing. Well,
and then we obviously also had some good news for friend of the show, Natasha Mack, who happened to be engaged earlier this week. Listen, y'all know how I feel about Mack Truck, and I'm going to toot my own horn regarding the Mack Truck here in just a short while. Don't you worry about that. But congrats to Natasha Mack on that engagement. You know, not much to say about it other than it's pretty awesome that, you know, she's entering now her second real like WNBA season where she's I won't even say probably, she's going to be on a roster. And so now she's entering a brand new part of her adult life. And I think that's really cool. So congrats to Natasha Mack on that.
It's awesome to see when the off the court where a person is being a person and it's independent of basketball and life reaches a certain point and you can tell that it's life and career that are ascending at the same time. You could tell by her conversation how engaging. She's always been engaging, but it's up an octave or two even higher than normal just because of the frequency she's kind of residing on at this point. She's building a new home on top of that. So she's in a great space on the court and off the court, and we couldn't be more happy for her.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to her confidence last week, and I mean, it has obviously grown off the court, but on the court, it's been electric to watch. She just has really grown. So we're going to get to that in a little bit. But other news for the Phoenix Mercury is they did start roster cuts this week. I wasn't really super shocked by that, honestly. Last year, the Mercury started roster cuts later than anybody else, but they also had less cuts to make. And we're doing spring or training camp in San Diego. So it was a much different situation for the Mercury last year. Plus, I mean, when you have the new big three coming in, it's just a lot of change for the team. So I wasn't really super shocked at the timing of the cuts. But obviously, friend of the show, Shyla Heel, and then also Anna Macaret. Did I say that right? Okay, slay. Were cut from the Mercury this week. 2 guards. I'm not super shocked by the positions being cut this early. I think with what we saw in game 1, and we're going to get to this, not that there's a huge skill gap, but there is an obvious gap an obvious vision of where Nate wants to go. And I don't think that those players really fit into that mold very well. And so I think that, you know, it makes sense. There's going to be a lot more cuts to come. I think they're down to 17, so there's going to be at least 5 additional cuts. And then there's still 2 players that haven't even come from overseas to join the team in Lakska and Helena Pueyo. So there's still a lot of changes to come with this Mercury roster. I won't be shocked if there's when, for example, Cheyenne Sellers got cut from the Valkyries. She was picked up by the Atlanta Dream. So I won't be shocked if someone else gets brought in. There can be so much movement over these 2 weeks until we start the season, then I won't be shocked if they acquire someone else only to cut them. It's just kind of the name of the game in terms of training camp in the WNBA.
It is. I feel like more than anything, because we've gone from the shortest training camp preseason era last season to one of the longer, if not the longest, in league history. That gives you more time. The Mercury played their first game later than almost any other team in terms of when other teams started playing preseason games. So that gave them more time to have a whole lot more practice before they actually got game film on to kind of gauge and assess things from. And I feel like because of that, they were able to hold on to players for longer and give everybody an opportunity in the very first game before deciding to make cuts. I assume they would make cuts after their first game. Obviously, it helps that they had an off day yesterday to do so as well, traveling back from Las Vegas. So things kind of aligned as far as them operating on that accord, as far as what timing in which they made these decisions. But position-wise is not a surprise. I feel like those players are both very good. I think the issue is that when you have so much depth and you have certain players that maybe were brought in after those two were signed to their training camp deals, even more so in the likes of the rookies that they were able to bring in, they weren't sure that they would have those types of options on the table for themselves, stemming from the draft, considering they didn't have any picks. So the fact that they had the options for some of the top pieces that they value most in the draft available to them, that naturally put those players that did get cut in the light to where there was a clear-cut outlet or avenue for them to make the roster, to now they signed these rookies that they'll have under team control for longer to rookie scale contracts. And it kind of makes more business sense on the logistics side for players that might not necessarily stake that high of a claim of minutes, to have them on the back burner, get them into your skill development program and start building them up. So business-wise, it just made more sense for them to go about it with the timing that they did and with the decisions that they did on the players, just because of, again, the newfound information they got post-draft.
Well, and I mean, Nate did, and he balanced the playing time well, I think, in that first game. Yeah. I think, it was a competitive game, so I think part of them really did want to win, but at the end of the day, Nate knew that he had to kind of give everybody an opportunity, and he did a good job. I think the Aces starters played a few more minutes, like 5 to 6 more minutes, depending on exactly who you're looking at. Mm-hmm. But I would argue that even though the Mercury has so much newness around them, the Aces also have just as much newness. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't really surprised when the Mercury came out with a completely different starting lineup to start that second half, and the Aces went with their probable usual starters. I wasn't super shocked by that. So I was impressed by that second unit's decision making and everything, and we'll get to that. But I really think that he did a really good job balancing everyone's opportunity in that first game.
Yeah, everybody got almost a full quarter's worth of minutes. And for a first preseason game, especially if you're going into it with 16 players, to be able to dole the minutes out the way in which he did, definitely gave everybody a fair shake for if it was a potential last chance or it was a show me what you got type of instance. You had more than enough opportunity to kind of do as much as you could with that. And I think that was, whether decisions were made going into the game already or if they were made stemming from the results of the game and how players performed, there was opportunity given, and that's all you can ever really ask for, especially if you're looking to parlay this opportunity into a potential next one if it didn't work out with the Mercury for you. So I think that was a good bit of business, good decision-making on that front. And I think that they're in a good space going forward, but they still have a handful of tough decisions to make still regarding the roster and getting it down to 12 for opening day.
Well, and we're going to go through the roster, I think, after we kind of break down the preseason game. Mm-hmm. So to kind of switch gears just a little bit, obviously the Mercury played the Aces on Tuesday, lost by 1 point in Vegas on Asia's shoe night. I literally was complaining on Twitter the day before the game, like, do we have to play on A1 night? You know, do we have to? But, you know, you win some, you lose some, I guess, you know. So congrats to Asia on the shoe, on the impeccable drop of the shoe, might I add. Sold out everywhere. You know, I can't get them. I don't think Stephen can get them. I'm not sure that even, you know, Alicia Gray, Asia's best friend, was able to get them. So I think there's a lot of better players around the league that they can't get their A1s. But nonetheless, the Mercury first showing with their big three. Alyssa Thomas, Satou Sabally, and obviously Kahleah Copper. They played most of the first half, like 15 to 16 minutes of that first half there. And I'll let you kind of start. How do you think that they look together on the court?
I think they look good. I think that for their first time having live action against non-Mercury players.
And the Aces, might I add, yeah.
For it to be the Las Vegas Aces, won 2 of the last 3 championships, for it to be also on the road. So you're not even playing at your home city. I think they did a great job navigating it. Tons of information to kind of take from this game just because of obviously who they're going against and, you know, the different types of things that the Aces like to do. But the Mercury was sharp. Defensively, I think they would want to be better than they are. But, again, it's a learning process. I was curious to see that Monica Kuamakani was in the starting lineup at the point guard spot, and obviously Natasha Mack at center. So I feel like we can start there. What were your thoughts on that, and what else kind of caught your eye?
Well, obviously, Natasha Mack in the starting lineup had me tooting my own horn over and over and over again. I might as well have been a physical train on Tuesday because I was so amped up by the fact that Natasha Mack had, I would argue, earned her way into the starting lineup, you know, playing overseas and then coming back here and proving your worth. And Kalani Brown is a very good player. So, I mean, it's not that I'm going to sit here and say that she's, you know, far, far light years better than Kalani, but I will say it seemed, though, that Mac fit into what Nate was trying to do a lot better than, especially, obviously, Kalani went in late in the game with the second unit there. But Mac looked like she was willing to run the floor, which I think is going to be super important to what Nate and the Mercury are trying to do. But I think Mac is just willing to play her role super well. And so that was really exciting to see. Like you said, Monique really impressed me. I didn't know really what to expect with her. And then in that starting lineup, she went out and really did her job and facilitated the ball. I think the one thing I really wasn't a huge fan of, which obviously I think as time moves on, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of, but Satou bringing the ball up did not really tickle my itch. But at the end of the day, I think we've discussed how there's literally 5 to 7 players on this team that could bring up the ball at any given time. So if Satou just happens to be the person that does it that possession, so be it. I don't think it holds that much weight, but I think that it kind of slowed down the offense is what I was seeing. And so I think they want to play fast and move the ball, and they need to do that.
What is it about Satou bringing it up that really kind of just doesn't do it?
It just really, to me, it slowed down everything that they were trying to do. That's what it, on the eye test, it looked like. Steven's probably going to tell me I'm super wrong, but it just looks like it kind of slowed things down for them a little bit. And they, before then, had seemed to be playing like in transition a lot and trying to get that quick bucket, which I think like is valuable for this particular roster. And so I think Satou just, I don't think it was anything that Satou did in particular. I just think it was kind of the nature of the beast with that lineup and situationally. I think she just kind of slowed the ball down just a little bit.
I don't think you're wrong. I'm just curious why you didn't care for it too much. I don't think it was an issue. Like you said, we talked about it. They had 7 players that brought the ball up the court to initiate offense within what can be assumed is the main rotation of players, not counting the training camp invites and some of the players that are on rookie scale contracts and things like that. So of the team, let's say top 10, they had 7 different players that brought the ball up the court. And I feel like that's a good thing because it gives you multiple options to never have to be playing at a pace that you don't want to play at when you're trying to get into it. And just looking at it with Satou, matchup wise, if we're still speaking to the starting lineups, Vegas is always fun because they're doing things that are not scripted and they can really send your game plan off script at times because of the unpredictability of it. A'ja Wilson, some people might assume, would be guarding Alyssa Thomas. She was not. She was guarding Natasha Mack. And you know who was guarding Alyssa Thomas? Chelsea Gray. Not what people would expect at all. So those little tweaks will make you adjust the way you're approaching the game. And by that same measure, you know who was guarding Satou Sabally? Kahleah Stokes.
Kahleah. No
one would expect to be opposing center to be on Satou Sabally. Because of that helps you put the defense in different positions. If the opposing center is guarding Satou and she's bringing the ball up the court, and Asia's guarding Mac, and Mac is on the second side somewhere, that opens up space in the paint. And that's what the Mercury want more than anything. So them being able to kind of pull those strings if teams try to get tricky with their defense, which they'll have to, it's an advantage for them because they're not necessarily playing the way that they might want to. So I get what you're saying. Kind of let it work out a little bit more, see it against some more opponents.
For sure.
And see what they try with matchups because everybody can't do what the Aces do because Kahleah Stokes is one of the most versatile centers. You're not going to be seeing Dallas put Tierra McCowan on Satou. I promise you that. You just can't copy and paste that style of defense to every team. So that's why I'm speaking to as it being an advantage for the Mercury because most teams can't do that. And even the teams that can, they're still able to flip that into an advantage. So I thought the offense was good. We can kind of get into this one, Arrington. We talked to Coach Tibbetts post-game about what his thoughts were from the starting unit. He mentioned that they were solid, but he had a little bit more to say about that as well.
I thought I really enjoyed what they did. It's a great opportunity for us to get some stuff on film and show them. You know, it's a different thing, like wind-wise, when you start playing up and down. I'm thankful that Vegas had already played one time, and they're a fast team. Asia gets out and runs. Obviously, Gray throws the ball ahead. So we were challenged in some areas that we hadn't been challenged in early in training camp. I thought as the half went on, it got better. So yeah, I was pleased. I thought our spacing could have been better. We didn't look how we've been looking in practice, but as the game or the half went on, it got a little bit better.
I think one of the maybe more fun things about their offense in that first half was that with the starting group on the floor, the ways in which they featured Alyssa Thomas. We talked about her being a chameleon on offense. She can start a possession in terms of initiating. She can be the trigger, the person that gets the ball, that starts an action, that didn't bring the ball to the court. And the ways in which they can use her are easy as a screener. She can play into the roll. She can play out the post. She can play from the elbow. There's literally nothing she can't do outside of shooting threes on offense. And there's a ton of value to that, especially when you talk about the matchups part that we went into before Nate spoke. And because of that, and I kind of see what he was talking about with the spacing, it felt like they were a little slow to get to their spots at times. They eventually got there, but with the pace and tempo they want to play with, they want to be in those spots and getting into things with 22, 21 seconds on the clock so that they can play through multiple options within whatever action that it is they're trying to get into. And with that, we saw a lot of Alyssa Thomas getting touches at the elbow. If she wasn't initiating, then maybe it was Kahleah, maybe it was Satou, maybe it was Sammy, maybe it was Lexi Held. They get the ball to Alyssa, and they're playing in all different types of actions with screens and flares and handoffs and just a lot of different things. And on the other side, outside of the three players involved in that action, other players are just spaced behind. And they did a solid job getting into those, especially once they got to a little bit in that first shift, but especially in that second shift in the second quarter when they got those groups back on the court. So fun to see that. They got up a nice bit of threes. Satou was not shy about letting it fly at all. Kahleah was looking to get to the paint every time she touched the ball. And it felt like whenever she did go to the three, it was like, okay, you guys are playing me too far off or you're giving me unders, so I'm going to pull this. That's cool. I'm fine doing it. You want the efficiency to be there, but you can tell that she's processing it the way that she spoke to us last week about rim and three in that order.
Well, and I do want to ask you, there's been so much conversation about this clip of Nate talking about the quote-unquote manure strip and the mid-range jumper. Mm-hmm. And I made my opinion known about this and that, like, it is the lowest percentage shot in women's basketball, period. End of story. But that said, you do have 3 players on your team that arguably a lot of their money is made in the mid-range. So I don't think that it's that Nate completely wants to take that away from them. I just don't think he wants that to be their first, second, or third option. And so I think that it's something that everybody is just kind of ignoring, is just that they do have so many other options. So why would they just immediately, fresh out the shot clock gate, jump to the lowest percentage shot in women's basketball? It doesn't make sense.
And that's what I spoke to in the video I did earlier this week, speaking to exactly that. I asked Nate about their shot profile, and he said what he said, and I feel like the context was lost because I think he was speaking from a process perspective where he wants them to be thinking the game through, to be trying to find the best available catch and shoot three-pointer that they can generate. And the ways in which they can generate that, all 3 of those players no worse than the top 12 drivers of the basketball in the league. You probably got 2 of them in the top 5 between Kahleah and Alyssa. If your spacing is good and the threat of the players within your spacing to shoot said threes plays into the decision-making of the defense, the driving lanes will be abundant. And from those paint touches that'll naturally garner extra attention from a defense, now you get those catch and shoot three-point opportunities. And if they're generating those to the extent that they should be able to against most, if not all, opponents, those are the shots that he wants them to be taking because they're wide open rather than How many times have you seen a wide open mid-range jump shot taken?
Not frequently.
Never. You almost never see it. And that's the thing. The shot that's mostly available, especially if you have the right personnel, wide open catch and shoot three-point opportunities from someone driving or from a Kahleah Copper post-up, from a Alyssa Thomas elbow touch, or a Satou post-up, or either of those 3 just driving the basketball. So I feel like the context was lost with people putting the thinking caps on a little bit and just thinking about maybe what he actually means by that, and not in a literal no middies. And he quite literally told me in the answer that, we'll take middies, late shot clock, and especially come playoff time. I feel like people did not hear that part because they were lost in what he said prior to that. But
selective hearing
why
loss,
you got to
Stephen.
listen all the way through because he didn't say no middies. He said minimizing them. And I feel like that was more so because of the process that he's desiring for his team, more than him just saying, we're eradicating middies. If you take a midi, you're not playing the rest of the game. Like, that's not what he said, and that wasn't even the energy that he spoke about that with. So I was just confused. Like, I asked the question, and I come on Twitter later, and like everybody up in arms about this question. Like, his response, I'm like, no, that's not what he meant. Nor was that ever what I gathered from what he said either.
Can I say this? I do feel as though Nate Tibbetts, aka Girl Dad, is probably one of the most misunderstood coaches in the league.
Sure.
Like, and I understand I totally got why everyone was so what's the word I'm looking for? Nervous about the hire initially, But at the end of the day, I feel like he is very fulfilled in the WNBA, and I feel like that's something that people were like concerned about is this just a stepping stone to get back to the NBA? I don't feel that way at all, and we're a year into the hire, and I don't think that I really think that the general population doesn't understand Nate Tibbetts and his coaching style, and I think that's okay. But when you have people reacting to that clip the way they did, I was just like, guys, please be serious.
Well, this is for the people that feel ways about Nate, I would reserve that judgment for how they look this season because this is the first time that he's getting a roster that is specifically aligned with the things that he desires, how he desires to play on both ends of the court. Last season, obviously, you're never going to complain if you have Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner.
Right.
But that's not, and it's not even to say that they were negatives because they certainly weren't that. Those are all-time greats.
Right.
But he has to shift the desired style of play that he wants to fit the needs of the roster that he's actually
already
coaching. Correct. So if you take those 2 out of the context and you shift a couple other things around, you get players in that can kind of uphold the style of play he wants to do more. Now you can kind of gauge and assess his abilities as a coach off of that a whole lot more than last season, if you're asking me.
I did have to majorly giggle about everyone's responses. Yeah. Y'all know how I feel about Girl Dad, and his dad coaching is a Hall of Fame girls basketball coach. I just don't think you guys really have a lot of the context involved in order to make these, harsh judgments. But that, like Stephen said, maybe in year 2 he'll change everyone's mind. Right now is just everyone's freaking out.
Honestly, he's not trying to change anybody's mind.
Exactly.
All he cares about is what's the final result of the season. Where are they performing at the level wise, and are they reaching their ceiling? They don't care about the general perception because they're not the ones that's deciding whether he's coaching going forward or not. So and I promise you, he didn't even see all of the reactions. He could care
My man
less.
is never on
Nor
Twitter.
should he.
One
He
thing
shouldn't.
about
Nor
him,
should
he
he.
is
Nor should
offline
he.
as he should be.
Yep.
Anyways, more.
Because you'll never be fulfilled if you wait. People questioning Becky Hammond for crying out
People
loud.
question me and you. We don't even make no decisions. We just work here.
Exactly. So again, if you're worrying about other people's opinions, it's not in house. You distracted and you're probably not where you're supposed to be at because of that. So kudos to Nate for that. He's fine. He's doing his best job coaching this team, and we'll be able to assess it a lot more clearly by the end of this season. And
We'll
after
check back in
season.
September is what we're saying, okay?
Sure. And if you're paying that much attention to Nate, you might as well watch our podcast. Hi, that's Erika. I'm Stephen. And we look forward to going on this ride with you throughout the season.
Well, more on that and the defensive identity right after this quick break. Brandon Bills, I'm so freaking excited about this ad right now. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitted hats, beanies, or t-shirts, Brandon Bills has you covered with performance and style. Look, I don't know if you've heard, Stephen, they have a Mercury partnership. I need that purple hat more than I need air. Looking for some gear that'll make you stand apart from the crowd? It actually doesn't make you stand apart from the crowd that much because so many people inside PHNX Arena are wearing these darn hats. They have you dedicated with exactly what you're looking for, exact custom apparel you need. They have partnerships with the Phoenix Suns, ASU, U of A as part of their campus collection, and obviously I just mentioned that Mercury partnership, which I'm pretty sure is brand new, just started this year. So inject all that purple nonsense into my veins. Y'all already know. I'm so excited. Catch me copping that purple hat. They are a local company here in Mesa, Arizona. Head over to brandonbills.com. Use code BBPHNX for 20% off of your first order. And then Stephen, we're in Studio K today. Circle K. I'm inject this also into my veins. I drive up to Phoenix a lot, a couple times a week in case you guys didn't know. So I do use the Inner Circle Rewards program almost arguably more than anyone else here in the studio. I've got that cool 10 cents off a gallon card, but then I also am an Inner Circle member, a premium Inner Circle member at that. So I get 5 cents off a gallon on top of that. All you've got to do is download the app, get enrolled, use your phone number to score Circle K deals, get 25 cents per gallon off of your first 5 fill-ups, and then 3 cents every day after that until you reach that 5 cents a gallon threshold. It's really not that hard. It's really not. So go download the Circle K app today, become an Inner Circle Rewards member. And there's terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit circlek.com for details. And then, Stephen, we got so many ads today. People are paying us out the wazoo. Did you hear?
That's right. It's that time of year again.
It's true. Big brother, big sister. This is probably one of the things I've been most excited about to talk about all year. We're teaming up with Big Brothers Big Sisters of America for an exciting 3-year partnership. It's not just about sports. It's about community, which we've talked about on this show so much. Like, we value the community. Big Brother Big Sister values the community. They have an incredible youth mentorship program that helps build passion and power throughout all of the cities to create local sports coverage, to create something truly meaningful. The partnership kicked off with our NFL draft coverage, but now we're going to be working year-round to support Big Brothers Big Sisters through fundraising, content, and events, even some big opportunities for our team and maybe even some of you to get involved. We are super excited to support youth mentorship that really makes a difference. You can learn more and see how to get involved at bbbs.org/ALLCITY. Whew! Welcome to Kobe and Andy in the chat. I hear there's a surprise appearance on another podcast today that you guys might be interested in. So be sure to just stick around on the PHNX Sports YouTube account. We've got a lot going on today. But thank you guys for joining us in the comments. Be sure to leave a like on the video. I'm out of breath. Stephen, one thing we've heard about all throughout training camp, the off season, is that the Mercury wants to hang its hat on toughness and defensive versatility. Mm-hmm. After getting a first look at the big 3 on the floor together, as well as the rest of that first unit and the secondary unit as well, what stood out to you about their defensive identity, and how do you see that shaping the team's personality this year?
Yeah, it's matchups again first, and the ways in which they can play with matchups. So if you think about having Akua Makani in the starting lineup as well as Natasha Mack, that's a level of versatility that they can go through that gives them it gives them optionality. They don't have to go with traditional matchups, though they can. They can cross match. They can switch everything. They can do all of the things that Nate showed to want to do last season in spades. And start there. And you talked about who was guarding Satou on offense. When the Mercury on defense, she's guarding the point guard, Chelsea Gray. No different than last season with Rebecca Allen, and he had her on most point guards in most matchups, depending on what things were. I think that's a dictation point for them. But also, in addition to that, we also saw Kahleah Copper spending time, obviously, on Chelsea Gray as well. So the fact that he has options to – they literally did this on a possession-by-possession basis over certain parts of the first half. But to start there was Satou. And then on Jackie Young, obviously, was Kahleah Copper. And then you had Kahleah Copper was guarding Jewel Lloyd. So if you look at it from that perspective, Satou was guarding the best perimeter player. And then you have a Kahleah Copper guarding the second best perimeter player. And then you have Kahleah guarding the quote-unquote third best perimeter player. There is no worse perimeter player when you're going against the Merc, or you go against the Aces, because of who they have starting, and they're starting 3 spots. And then you go to the front court, and no different than with Asia on defense. Becky likes to have her roaming on defense to just kind of blow things up, provide rim protection and things like that in emergency style. No different than Alyssa Thomas was used in Connecticut, but here in Phoenix, it's clear that Nate is going to want to use her the same way that she was used in Connecticut. Having her on Kia Stokes. So, and that puts Natasha Mack right into the fire. We talked about it with her when she was on the podcast. One of her coming to the league moments was, okay, BG's out. Your first game with the Mercury in a regular season. Guess who you got to go and guard?
Asia, have fun.
The reigning MVP, Asia Wilson. Have fun with that.
Of course, she's got to shoe Asia Wilson. Yeah,
correct. So yeah, it's funny to see her be put right back in that exact same position, even if she's sharing the front court with Alyssa Thomas. And obviously, it's intentional, and obviously, it's a cosign to Mac, because you're not going to just put someone you're uneasy about on Asia Wilson.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this. I gotta toot my horn on Natasha Mack. Okay. I mean, a couple weeks ago, it might have been last week, I don't even know. We talked about, who are these young players that are going to make a splash this season? A splash? Mm-hmm. How about a starter, brother? Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Not that I couldn't believe it, because that's fake news. I could totally believe what I was seeing with my own 2 eyes. But yeah, what she was able to bring to that starting lineup was really impressive. And like I was saying earlier, her size and being able to run the rim is really important, not only on the offense, but also on the defense as well, and getting back to where she needs to be. You know, when you're big and you're throwing in the ball after the Aces obviously score on you, because that's what they do, and then you have to sprint the entire 96 feet back, or 94 feet?
94.
Sorry about that. You know, you got to be with the program. And Mac was not only with the program, she was running and gunning. So I hate that we, have to keep revisiting this, but two dogs, two. I just couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and if you're looking at it based off of the impact, they were plus 12 when Mac was on the court.
Period.
And plus 12 when she was on the court. Second best on the Mercury for the preseason game 1. Kahleah Copper was, when she won up there, they were plus 13. So well, you think about who people were expecting to see in the starting lineup, and it's like, oh, it's these two. And then they're, in terms of the box score, the most effective players. The team was at their best when those two were on the court, and it's undeniable.
Can I ask you a question? I know we're talking about the defense, but real quick. Mm-hmm. Do you think that this game shut the "we need a point guard" fam up, or no?
No, people are not going to say they were wrong. I'm gonna
shut them up this season. I want you to know. I'm gonna get them to be quiet.
People are gonna wait until they have a not so hot game and then say, that's why. Even if it takes 2 months.
I know you know who I'm talking about, but every time there's a Mercury game, it doesn't matter if it's preseason, postseason, regular season, we get this girl cursing us out in Portuguese in our mentions, talking about we need a point guard every single game. And I'm like, this is our game-by-game Portuguese cuss out, but I don't know if you know this, we don't make the decisions.
Not at all.
If I did, we would still have a certain point guard with the number of 0. So nonetheless, I'll be quiet, but every game I'm just like, guys, I don't know if you know this, but we didn't decide this.
Mm-hmm. It's not our decisions. Nonetheless, defensively, they were impressive. I think, again, not unlike the offensive side, they have room for improvement, and naturally it's the first actual game for this brand new group together. Obviously, it's going to come with some speed bumps in the process and some opportunities to learn even more so. The switching was solid. They didn't maybe go to it as much as I thought they would, but that also might be a matchup thing. That also might just be them being in kind of preseason mode, trying to build out their base before they start getting shifting things a little bit. So I was impressed, though. I was very impressed. I like that Alyssa Thomas was so active. She was so communicative. Every dead ball scenario, they were huddled up, and she was not necessarily barking out commands, but making sure that everybody was
Even when she was
thinking
on the
the game
bench.
through. For sure, she was making sure that everybody was thinking the game through on the same accord. And we saw some good instances, especially as they got the lead back right before halftime, where Satou's providing rim protection. She's showing early help, getting in the rotation and cutting off a drive, getting a block, and then making the outlet pass to, I think it was to Westbeld, to get the layup right before halftime to take the lead back. We see Kahleah Copper fighting over screens. We see Akua Makani just pressuring Jackie Young 92, 93 feet and turning her twice before ultimately getting a steal and earning an extra possession for the Mercury. And by that same measure, Akua Makani just navigating screens and just being active on defense. I think that there was an accord they were moving on, and it was impressive to see where they are defensively. They did well defending their rotation. The Aces put a specific type of pressure on you that is different than most opponents can, but I think they were solid, and they got multiple efforts from the players that came in the reserve unit as well. Obviously, we already mentioned Westbeld, but in addition to Westbeld, Alexis Prince came in and was just ever active. If it wasn't Mac that was guarding Asia, it was Prince that was guarding Asia. And Alexis came in and was getting after it, just putting the activity and athleticism all over the court. And I think that activity more than anything, even if it comes with some mistakes, jumping on pump fakes, some kind of inopportune fouls, I think that the discipline will come. But just being on the court with the type of defenders that they're on the court with now, I think it's going to help raise the ceiling for the team defensively.
Well, and something else we've talked about all year for the last 12 months is their, put that stamp on the defensive possession and closing out. And I feel like this is the first time in the entire time we've hosted this podcast together that I'm not sitting here being like, oh, they got out rebounded by X team.
Yeah.
And they just did not. They, defensive rebounds or offensive rebounds, comparatively 35 to the 27 for the Aces. And so, and again, like, I just think that when they're trying to play with the pace that they need to play with, that their ability to close out is super, super, super important. And everyone on the court was showing a big willingness to do what they needed to do to box out and get that rebound. And I think that that's so important.
Yep. They got 14 of those rebounds from the starting group alone. So they were getting after it in terms of, like you spoke to, those the intention on the glass. They're doing a good job boxing out, closing possessions, and we saw them, like I said, get that lead back right before halftime, largely because of their ability to play with the defensive activity they did and then get the stops that they needed to. But I will be keeping a close eye on the matchups that they decide to roll with the defensive, with the lineups that they're using, because they have a lot of options. You can put Alyssa Thomas on the point guard if you really want to, and you can put Satou on the center if you really want to. You can mix in Kahleah on guards and forwards. There's just so much they can do with Natasha Mack. You can switch 4 to 5 out if you really want to. Like, there's a lot of buttons that Nate would be able to press to get more out of the defense, respective to the flow of a game and to each opponent. Obviously, they played as much zone defense as anybody last season, which we spoke to a ton. We didn't see them play any zone against the Vegas Aces, but I'm pretty sure that's something that they're going to have in their back pocket to add another layer to the team's defensive versatility. And the key thing for me, though, is them being able to do all of those things across multiple lineups. That's what makes a team effective on that end. And the fact that they can and they want to guard the ball to the extent that they want to is going to bode well for them going forward.
Well, and I want to get really quickly before we go any further, I do want to talk through kind of the rookies on the team and see who we think earned their spot and so on and so forth. But Nate did have a little something to say after the game about that secondary unit. So I do want to play this clip of Nate. If we have it, we do. There we go.
We're going to have some tough decisions. I think it was nice to give everyone a really good run. Everyone got at least 8 minutes, which was the goal for tonight. And everyone had an impact in different ways. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to keep still battling for roster spots. I think our front office has done a really good job of making it a competitive group. And, there were some, obviously Westbeld had some good moments. Prince had some good moments. And, that's what you want to see when they step out there.
I feel like there were two players that I feel like really, really, really increased their stock in this Aces game. Number one, we've already touched on a little bit, but Alexis Prince. I was very, very impressed with Alexis Prince's decision making. Was, I would argue, she could have been the sixth starter in that game. And I think that really is saying something versus the Aces. Like we've talked about at length, she started that second half versus the Aces. And I mean, she was playing their first unit and she was playing extremely well. So Alexis Prince and then also Catherine Westbeld, I think both of them really, really, it's going to be tough for them to cut either of those players.
Yeah, because they played so early, I think Nate played 9 players in the first half, if I'm not mistaken.
I want to say you're correct.
And those two were heavily involved in that 9. I feel like that's a sign. Whether it was intentional or not, I feel like that's a sign of the players that he's most confident in. And this is obviously with 2 players that I feel like are going to stake a claim in the main rotation, not being with the team right now because they have things going on with their respective teams overseas. But yes, Westbeld and Prince came in and brought activity on the defensive end, and they brought connection on offense. Alexis Prince is a bucket. Never met a shot that she doesn't feel like she can take or make, and she can get to it without needing help from anybody else. And I think it's that latter part in particular when you're playing with players like Kahleah and Satou and Alyssa, even Sammy, because of the respect the defense has to give her when she's spaced. That's going to open up opportunity to play one-on-one for 1 or 2 or maybe 3 dribbles without having to worry about help defense. And because of that, and a lot of times the way a defense is going to have to be rotating to her because of the attention they have to give to those other 4 players I just mentioned, she's going to be set up for great success to be that bucket that she is. And the drives in particular are going to be extremely important. Getting downhill, getting paint touches after the attention that they get and ability to score off of that. A couple of times we saw her come off of handoffs from Satou, and it's Asia in her face. And she's like, all right, cool, Asia, come get this bucket.
Yep.
And just pull up, hands right here, almost poking her in the eye, and the ball just goes right through. And that's the type of subtle confidence to where it's not taking the ball out the hands of the other players, nor is it derailing the offense, but it's coming within a flow. She has that in spades. There's another player that stood out to me as well. So I want to hear your thoughts before we get back to that. Your thoughts on Westbeld and Prince. Anything else?
No, not really. I was impressed by their decision making, and I think, like I said, when you're playing with the likes of, we're going to talk about top 12 players in the league, like you have to be able to make good decisions and make them quickly, and both of them were very much so able to do it. I think it is a good sign when a rookie is taking 13 shots in a game. I think it's a really good sign of where we're headed. So I'm excited from what I saw for both players. I'm interested to see who this third player is.
Alexa Held. And look at the lineups that she was being featured in. She spent a lot of time in the first half with the main rotation of players as the backcourt with Sammy Wickham. And what that brought is a ton of shooting and spacing and a respective from a defense that has to be given. Those two been on the court with Alyssa Thomas in particular. And we spoke to Alyssa playing through the elbows and getting touches there, how that inverts the offense and allows them to play through movement. Having 2 shooters that are screening and moving around the court in unison with one another, the likes of Held and Wickham with a playmaker like Alyssa Thomas, that's a lot of offense to have to deal with, and that's just 3 players. Now imagine also on the court is Kahleah Copper, in addition to Natasha Mack and different constructs of lineups like that. Now you start to see the layers because they can play to different styles of play in respect to what lineup is on the court. And we saw Held and Wickham knocking down threes off of the elbow touches that Alyssa Thomas that they were playing through there. And I think there's a lot of offense in and of itself that can be built from just those touches from Alyssa and those guards in particular being on the court with her.
I just have to laugh because I do think it is wild when a coach does look at all the options. But just to answer James' question, we cannot trade Kaylin Gilbert for Ari McDonald, considering Kaylin Gilbert is still in college. And I'll be honest with you guys, as an Arizona fan myself, we would take Ari, but like we have better options on the team right now. So I don't know what we would even trade for Ari. And I'm 95% sure that Ari's on a training camp contract also. So I'm not sure that she can even be traded for. But, you know, I guess if we're just filling the comment section with ha-has, then yeah, let's trade Kaylin Gilbert for Ari McDonald. Love that. Love the brain connection regarding Arizona, you know, basketball. You know, it's a lot of fun, you know, talking about Kaylin Gilbert and Ari McDonald trades that simply cannot happen. But in regards to the rest of the newer players, do you think there's anyone else that maybe secured their spot in that game versus the Aces? Or do you think there's someone that's going to need to play extremely well on Sunday or the rest of training camp in general just to make the roster? And like you said, you know, there's still a few people that are stuck overseas finishing out their overseas commitments. So, you know, there's still more to go around in this roster.
I'm curious how many guards they're going to want to go into the season with. If they're going to stick with 12 at the full capacity of a roster size, or if they're going to go into it with 11 and have one roster spot available for in the case of injury or in case of another player from another team maybe getting cut that they have their eye on, stuff like that. So questions to kind of see unfold over the next 10 to 12 days or so. But I would say I'm looking at Sev Uzun, because I feel like at this moment in time, there's a clear niche for her on the roster, but that's not including the two players that are overseas right now, one being a post and Musa, and obviously in Laksa being a wing shooter. I'm curious if they feel the need to have another point guard if you already have Akua Makani, and obviously you're going to have the other two in the big three outside of Thomas that are going to be initiating offense at times. You just have advantage creators, and I wonder how much they value having another point guard on the roster in addition to having, obviously, McConnell that's on a rookie scale deal. So I'm curious how they're going to want to dole out the rest of the roster. If they want to stay at 12 full capacity or if they go down to 11. Remains to be seen. Obviously, last season, they spent the large majority of the season with 9 or 8 players because of injury. And not being able to play 5-on-5 at practice and things like that. Yeah, very unprecedented type of things. But yeah,
I would love if they could expand the rosters already, Chris. That would be, you know.
I'm just saying, like, enough with the teams. Expand the rosters first. Expand the rosters first.
First of all, we're gonna have an odd number of teams.
Exactly.
For what? For who? Like, how does that even work? 2 years in a row, we're going to have odd number of teams. It doesn't make any sense. And then on top of it, we have players getting injured left and right. And and like, I hate to be this person, but it does suck that third round picks are getting cut, you know? And
second round picks getting cut.
You have people that are very invested in these kids' college, and I hate to call them kids, but in this situation they kind of are. You've got people that are really invested in these kids' college careers, and then they don't even get a chance to even watch them try to develop in the league. It's really frustrating to be a fan of both kind of not leagues, but levels of women's basketball, because there is such a gap in, I won't say a skill gap, but like in what can be deemed developmental and what deems you're cut from the team. Yeah. So I really hope they take messages from Chris and myself and everyone else in the chat and let them know that they should get 15 players on the roster. I really don't think it can be that hard.
I don't think it's that hard. Obviously, you have to have the CBA part together to have the money to facilitate to larger rosters, but hopefully that's something that's addressed going into next season, because there's going to be entirely too much talent, again, that's just going to start the season not being on the WNBA roster. And if the goal is to keep more of your homegrown talent at home, expand the rosters. You can go from 12 to 15 comfortably, and that's 3 players times however many teams you have in a league per season that you're doing it while you're expanding. Look at the opportunity that would present.
No to your shade, they're already not paying them all that much money. Like,
that's a problem too.
Find the fines, brothers. Like, I'm sorry. Someone's got to go through their Excel spreadsheets with a fine-tooth comb and find out where we're going wrong.
They better be going through it thoroughly, because these players ain't playing with them, nor should they be going into next season.
Well, and we're going to talk about the ESPN Top 25 ranking here right this second. I saw this yesterday morning, and kind of on edge as I was reading through the list. I'm like, oh gosh, where are we going to be headed? Let's start with Alyssa, please. Perfect. And so obviously Alyssa Thomas, number 5 on the list. She's listed with their 24 stats. And maybe I should have included, the players before and after them. I don't know, to give us more context, but I think 5 is fair for Alyssa. But I do think that the other 2 on the list can very easily work their way up on the list. And so I think Alyssa is right where she's supposed to be. I think she could also be one of those players that climbs the likes of a MVP watch list for the season. And so, maybe 5th is unfair. Maybe it's a little low. But, last year, 10.6 points per game, 8.5 rebounds per game, and then 7.9 assists. She's at multiple times in the league led the league in assists for the year, as well as I want to say career as well. And so, because of the article literally talks about because of her shoulder issues, the majority of her shots come in the paint. And so I think she's going to be really good for the Mercury, and she's going to really fit into what Tibbetts wants. And so I think she has every possibility, like everyone else on the list, to move up on this list.
So for full context, number 1, obviously, and should not be surprised to anybody, Asia freaking Wilson. I feel like no one has any gripes with that, and if you do, you probably have not been watching women's basketball for long. Number 2 is where it gets tricky for me, because Nafisa Kahleah had a sensational season last year. She finished 2nd in the MVP race. She was 1st in Defensive Player of the Year. Her team shocked a lot of people that were not listening to us when we talked about our league projections going into last season. I told people that the Lynx would be a team that surprises a lot of people and might end up in the finals, and they might end up winning it all. And they got to within literal possessions, where if there was not nonsense going on with the officials, they might potentially be looked at as the champions of the 2024 season, because that game went to overtime in a series where they were expected to get swept, and they just went out and stole game 1, and then they just did not have it the rest of the way, going back and forth with the juggernaut that is the Liberty. So do you think that Nafisa Kahleah is the 2nd best player in the W right now?
I'll be honest, when I was putting together my preseason predictions as far as preseason awards, it was so difficult to not predict Nafisa Kahleah as MVP. And I think for no reason other than just of how important she is for their team. Yeah. If they don't have Fee, they're not even close to the level of competitive that they are. And Asia is an incredible player, but I would argue almost that Nafisa is more versatile. I won't sit here and say that she's better than Asia. I do not feel that way at all, but I do think she is easily a top 3 player in the league. Whether she's 2 or not, I don't know that I agree, but it was very, very difficult for me to not say that she would be the MVP, simply because I know she's mad. She needs to move. She needs to prove to everybody what happened last year. So
yeah. She's got vengeance on her mind. I imagine she's going to be right there in the thick of the MVP race yet again. I'm not mad at Fee being number 2, especially if we're judging it off of what players did last season. She was, for a large portion of it, the best player in the league for quite some time, which is why the Lynx were the team that they were. They had the record that they were, and they were who they were in the playoffs. So full context, number 3 was Breanna Stewart. Probably doesn't surprise anybody. Number 4 was Caitlin Clark. That might surprise some people. It probably shouldn't, though. And then number 5 was Alyssa Thomas. So of that top 5, I'm not mad at that 5. I'm not mad at the order in which they're ranked.
Me either. And frankly, if you didn't see, Caitlin was my MVP, and it's unfortunately because I do think the media will do what the media does, but I think 4 is a very fair spot, and I think 5 is a fair spot for Alyssa. So I wasn't really mad at the list.
No, I wasn't either. Just wanted to bring the context for anybody that maybe didn't see it per se, but I think you could swap out 3 through 5, and I wouldn't have been mad at either order that you could come up with. Correct. That for sure.
Yeah. You want to guide us to spot number 11 then?
Yeah, number 6, we got Jonquel Jones. That gives the New York Liberty 2 of the top 6 players in the league. At number 7 is Sabrina Ionescu. That gives the New York Liberty 3 of the top 7 players in the league. And then at number 8, you got Nneka Ogwumike with the Seattle Storm. Number 9, Jackie Young. That gives the Las Vegas Aces 2 of the top 9 players. At number 10, Kelsey Plum of the Los Angeles Sparks.
That just don't even
11
sound right.
Nah, it still
It's
don't even
not right.
don't roll off the tongue yet. And number 11 and number 12, respectively, Kahleah Copper and Satou Sabally. So that gives the Mercury 3 of the top 12 players. Only 2 teams with 3 top players in that 12 were the Liberty, obviously, and the Phoenix Mercury. Very curious, what are your thoughts about Kahleah being number 11 and Satou being number 12?
I personally did think that I do think Kahleah is a top 10 player, and I don't think it's really like questionable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you take into account her injury last year, that is especially true.
Mm-hmm.
And when you also take into account just how much basketball that girl was playing, and yeah, we can talk about the Olympics and All-Star, but like her usage rate was insane last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Kahleah in particular is going to really surprise a lot of people in just how good she's going to be this year.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope that this like back thing that she's been like on an obvious minutes restriction about is just that. It's just a rest thing to get her ready for the season.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really, really hope that back thing is still not lingering, because I think that Kahleah controls the ceiling of the team, in my opinion. And so I really do believe that she's a top 10 player, and I think by the end of the season, this list will reflect that.
Yeah, for the Mercury to be a championship team that they desire to be, or the contending team they desire to be, Kahleah Copper has to be a top 10 player. And that's not asking for some astronomical level of performance that we've never seen from her.
Correct.
We've seen her be a top 10 player in at least 3 of the last 4 seasons.
We saw her at the beginning of the season last year arguably be a top 3 player in the league. And so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if she
not even arguably, she was the best player in the league for the first 2.5-ish weeks.
Yeah.
First time we've seen a player back with 3 times 30-plus points.
39-point games back-to-back, boys.
Yeah.
Did you forget?
Who does that? Only Kahleah. So, to that point, that's not out the realm of possibility for her to be a top 10 player, for her to be top 5, for her to punch into the potential top 3. It's all about sustaining, though, for Kai. And I don't think she should have been number 11. I'll go ahead and say that. Kahleah Copper had a better season last year than Kelsey Plum did.
I would agree with that.
Kahleah Copper is a better basketball player than Kelsey Plum is. If we're factoring in offense and defense, she's a better player. She should have been in the top 10. I would have swapped her out
with Jackie.
I would have swapped her out with Kelsey first, who was number 10. I think that Kahleah is better than Jackie Young.
I would agree.
So I think Kahleah shouldn't have been anything lower than 9. I think people continue to somehow underrate Nneka Ogwumike and the multifaceted impact she has over a game. I don't understand it. I never will, but I just implore for people to watch the game. Nneka being number 8, I'm not mad at all. So I think Kahleah shouldn't have been anything less than number 9, and I think that by the end of the season, she finishes in the top 9 for sure. Now on the Satou Sabally. Obviously, she only played post-All-Star break last season, so a lot smaller of a window to gauge her from, but her last full season played, she was first team, All-W.
Yep.
Do you think it's fair for her to have been at number 12, and where do you maybe think she ends up come the end of the season?
I think she ends up on the same kind of spot she's at now, between like 12 and 9.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like you said, the injury last year and the Olympics and everything that went on into last year's season obviously played a role into her stats and everything, but also then again, the rest of her team as well. And I think that this Mercury team is much better than last year's Wings team, even though the Mercury had a really hard time with the Wings last year for whatever reason.
That was Odyssey Sims.
You're right.
And I wish she was on this team.
I feel like we've asked for Odyssey Sims so much, and we've really begged, you know?
When she was released because of injury from the Wings last season, I was like, can y'all please go get her backup point guard? Natasha needs somebody else they could bring it up.
Oh my gosh. Then everyone would stop cursing at us in Portuguese that we need a point guard.
Facts, because Odyssey would have been a dog.
It would have been fun.
It would have been perfect, and she would have been perfect for this roster too, but that's neither here nor there. Sorry I went off on a tangent there. I think Satou finishes in the top 15 firmly. I think it depends on how quickly they kind of have their role definition within the big 3 in terms of usage, in terms of where players are playing within the offense and things like that. How quickly they're able to kind of iron out that type of part of their process will determine how high up that Satou can punch. If we're just talking about individual talent, she's top 10. No different than Kahleah. But when you start looking at roles with teams and how much usage they're going to have, it would take for Satou to be like second team all defense, which is not out the realm of possibility. For her to be in that top 10 for player ranks, along with Alyssa and Kahleah.
Yeah.
And I don't think they should, if the Mercury peak out, they should have 3 players that are borderline, if not all included on the defensive team, and borderline, if not included in the all W teams, point blank period. They've been that individually for the past like 4 seasons together. And I feel like if they're getting the most out of this roster, they're going to be used to the extent of that all W team on both ends of the court that they've been. And it's going to all kind of bake into one process for them.
Okay, and then one last question regarding this list.
Yeah.
Is there any Mercury... Gosh, what is the word I'm looking for? Is there any member of the Mercury right now that's not on the list that maybe could sneak their way into the list by the end of the season?
I don't see it just because if you have a big 3, the ball's going to be in their hands most. So unless you're a goblin, like Alyssa Thomas said on Media Day, unless you're in goblin mode defensively, that would be the only way that someone could punch up into the top 25. I just don't see it. And for full context, Angel Reese was number 25.
Yeah.
So if you're gauging it off of, okay, what level does a player have to get to be able to punch into that group? If she's number 25, well, she's not the 25th best player in the league, and that's the level you got to get to, which is all-star, borderline all-W. I just don't see that route for anybody else to do it on this Mercury team. But having 3 players that are flirting with the top 10 is something that only the New York Liberty can stake claim to. So
And the Aces, right?
Aces only got 2
my
because
bad.
Chelsea Gray is
You're so
outside of
right.
the top 15. Yeah. So
Where's she at?
Chelsea Gray is number 16.
That's disgusting.
I mean, yeah.
I'm sorry.
So we can go ahead and run through the rest of the list real quick. So we got the 12. We got the 12 with Satou Sabally. Number 13, Kelsey Mitchell, Indiana Fever. Number 14, Erika Ogunbowale. And she is not the 14th best player
She
in the
is not,
league,
no.
but that's not my list. This
Neither
is
here nor
ESPN's
there.
list. Number 15, much to much surprise for many people last season, Kahleah McBride.
I ain't
Ultimate X
surprised.
Factor. I'm not. Ultimate X Factor for the Minnesota Lynx. Number 16, like we mentioned, Chelsea Gray. 17,
Don't get triggered.
Brittany Griner.
Don't get
Number
too mad.
18, keep that hyphenated name to yourself. It's only Diggins now, Skylar Diggins. Number 18, excuse me. Surprisingly, number 19, finishing behind her ex-teammate, Jewel Lloyd.
I also don't like that, but
I'm not mad at it because of the season she had last year.
yeah.
Obviously, those reasons were off the court related in terms of relationships with all of the behind the scenes stuff they had going on and the fit not being there. Plus, I think she was hurt last season for multiple stretches. 19 for injured Jewel Lloyd. We know she's much better than that. Number 20 was Ryan Howard. I feel like she's rather low on the list, but we'll see about that going into this season. 21, Aaliyah Boston. 22, Erika Hamby, who was just insane last season. 23, we got Big Al, Alicia Gray. Number 24, Ezzy Magbagor. I think she's in for another big time season.
I do. Yep.
And then number 25, the one and only Angel Reese. So, any other thoughts you might have on this top 25?
Jewel's
list?
gonna skyrocket on this list in the Aces system.
So you think the Aces finished with top 10?
Yeah, I
3
do.
top 10 players?
At least 3 top 15.
So you think?
Because I think Jackie will slide out of the top 15 and Jewel will slide in, or the top 10. Personally, I could be wrong, but that's what I'm foreseeing. Is Jackie stays in the top 15 for sure, but
she won't slide outside the top 15. I don't think she goes any lower
No, exactly.
than 12.
She'll slide, and so she'll stay in the top 15, but but Jewel is gonna move way up.
Okay.
And so that's what I foresee. I think Jackie
Jewel
is
and
going to have a
Erika.
career year this year. I think.
Who, Jewel?
Jewel, yeah. I just think, like, in the same breath as Nafisa with the Lynx, I think Jewel will have that same kind of mentality with the Aces of, y'all said I couldn't, so watch me go. And explicit intelligence, let me tell you something. If you want to talk to somebody about the WNBA on 2K, you're in the right place. I play with the Mercury on 2K as well. Satou does have that. She got everything on 2K, okay? Let me tell y'all. So whoever, I will say that the game is not perfect, but it is pretty dang good, okay, for being their obvious secondary priority in regards to the 2K game. It's pretty damn good. The career mode is not very good. I would appreciate if they upgraded that a little bit. I've been playing the same season for like 6 months, and it still thinks that me and Caitlin are rookies. I'm like, you guys, can you please? I am a 7-year vet now. I'm a 7-time MVP at that, and y'all just keep having me go through the same motions with. Anyways, nonetheless, explicit, you can message me anytime at Erika Day on Twitter, and we can talk about 2K anytime you want. Is there anything we forgot about today, Stephen?
No, I think we checked off all of the boxes. I will say though, I can see the Aces or the Mercury ending the season with 3 top 10 players.
Agreed.
Caitlin is gonna firmly be in the top 3 by the end of the season.
Yeah.
And I think Erika is going to jump back into the top 10 as well. So there's going to be a lot of shuffling with those names. And I'm curious to see what the ESPN rank looks like. Maybe we should do our own rank by the end of the season, honestly. I feel like we should do it.
I think we should do one probably before the season starts and then again at the end of the season.
We could.
What do you think? Maybe Die Hard only content?
Fit it in schedule-wise, or we could do a Die Hard only content. I like that too.
Okay.
That's a good opportunity. Which speaking of that, if you are not a Die Hard, change that soon, because we got, as you just came up with this on the spot, we have a lot of Die Hard content only that's gonna be surfacing soon, and I don't want any of y'all to miss out. So do what you gotta do to become a diehard and get this exclusive content that we got coming, because it's going to be fun, and it's gonna be kicking off real soon.
And it's that first link down in the description. It's less than $6 a month, guys. Come on now. And you get to join the Discord with me, Kobe, Andy Bryant, Luke, Steven. So many of y'all in the comments are in the Discord. So, and y'all know that's my favorite place to talk. I do a lot of yapping in my free time, and number one place I like to do it is the Discord. Plus, we're doing a WNBA fantasy league, which, as y'all saw earlier, Steven thinks he's gonna win. That is just simply not true. This year, I will be better about remembering to do my lineups. So that being said, I'm going to win the fantasy league, and then I'm going to decide what my own prize is. So watch out for that. Anyways, thanks for joining us. Watch out on the PHNX_Mercury on Twitter today. There's going to be a Mercury media availability later today, as well as like a WNBA wide availability. So I think Steven's probably going to be tapped in with the in-person availability. I'm probably going to be at the remote WNBA availability. So hopefully we got you covered from both ends over on the PHNX_Mercury on Twitter. This is your reminder to put it in your Google Calendar, your Slack calendar, your Yahoo calendar. I don't really care what kind of calendar you use. You jot it down on the paper. 11 a.m. every Thursday for the month of May. It's really easy to remember. And then we've got something special brewing for that home opener. So keep your eyes peeled on the PHNX_Mercury on Twitter, where we're going to let you know what we're doing for that opening day. Follow Stephen PG3 on Twitter for my good friend and all of his basketball analytics. You can follow me at Erika Day. Ayrton at Freckled. It's on the tip of my tongue. Mamba. Ooh. All right. Freckled Mamba. Anyways, thank you guys all for tapping in with us. We will see you guys next week.
We all silly like the mayor.